Hey y'all, it's Niver, and this is Niverland, brought to you by Minnesota Ice, 36 Lynn Refuel Station, Crybaby Craig's, and Land O'Lakes. Today's conversation was awesome. I think in part because I've eaten at this chef's restaurant recently, and every time I do, I'm imparted with a sense of quality and kindness and flavor. Karyn Tomlinson, 2024 Food and Wine Best New Chef, 3-time nominated James Beard nominee. This is a person that is really doing relevant work from the back end kitchen side of things, working particularly with farmers in person and finding things through seasonality. It's a unique experience. It's one that I think if you're living in St. Paul or Minneapolis, you should get to Myriel. It's really a lovely place. And it was an honor to talk to Chef Karyn today. She's really got it going. I look forward to more from Karyn. Happy to have you join us on Niverland. I need that care.
Yeah.
I need that level. The thoughtfulness, the greeting at the door, multiple greetings at the door, people that actually are managing, like adults doing the door.
Yeah.
You know, and they speak to you in a certain way and they make you feel comfortable and they offer you every option and you're feeling like they're, you know, that kind of washes over you a little bit there. Also, it's tiny. And running a small restaurant has unique challenges because you can't hide, the servers can't hide, and the guests can't hide. You know, like everybody's kind of like looking at each other going, you know, hopefully everything's going really well, but there's a certain amount of choreography there.
Yeah.
And when you can't be like visibly flustered sometimes, you know, because like you walk in the front door and can see to the back of the kitchen. You know, like for me, I walk in and I'm looking at the people that are working there and I'm checking out what they look like and how smooth things are flowing. And so then that's kind of the way it feels to me. And then I sit down and I'm always, you know, just impressed by the greeting and the way that people just say hello. So there's just a proper way about it that I miss kind of even in what I do. You know, Moochie's a little more casual, you know, and they're like, hey, come on over, you know, sit down, you know, and I like that because it's comfortable.
Yeah.
Dinette offers me a little of that. And I'm going to miss it when Dinette goes because I'm going to have a little less of that pretty in my life.
Yeah.
But you offer that.
We'll just come over to Myriel whenever you need that pretty.
I know, but I think that's why. I think that's why you let St. Paul see you exactly how you are.
I mean, it's so important, I think, to have different expressions of hospitality in different, you know, and everybody has kind of their own voice to bring to that. And Myriel is a very unique and special expression of hospitality. Is it the only one? No. I mean, like how you described the hospitality at Moochie's, you know, that's that familial kind of more casual way is really needed too. You know, we can't just do it one way. But I'm really glad to kind of fill that gap, you know, with Myriel. And I do think it resonates. It hits, especially after COVID, you know, and coming out of that experience, you know, I think it's really human contact, a sense of decorum without fear, not like, you know, there was a lot of decorum with COVID, but a different kind. This one is intentional. It's there to serve you and not to protect you or whatever it is, you know. So I think there's something that's really important about that.
Myriel is important. There's no doubt about it.
Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, if you haven't heard Chef speak yet, this is Karyn Tomlinson, chef, proprietor, owner, queen, king of Myriel.
I prefer queen.
Queen, cool. Queen of Myriel. And also Food and Wine 2024 Best New Chef. Yay.
Thank you.
So freaking cool. So, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I thank you for being here. I also have to thank some of our sponsors, Minnesota Ice, 36 Lynn Refuel, Land O'Lakes, and Crybaby Greg's. All right, let's get rolling. So we talked a little bit about what Myriel does for me, and that even for me, it's important. There's a direction that dining's going always, one way or the other. There's a direction that it's going, and there's been a lot of retreating and changing and closing.
Yeah.
And then you do see some of our best folks, some of our most talented, unique people for this area. Diane, Yia. I mean, just everybody kind of like the top of the top are really still doing it and pressing. St. Paul has Meritage. It's got Jones. It's got some lovely places. But in this time this time is some retreating and some going forward. I see that you are preferring to add space to your restaurant, and you're adding a room on the side, right?
Yeah, a little private dining. It's kind of our glorified pantry, really. We have all of our extra plates there. We have extra glassware. When I was a kid, I used to hang out in like a closet. I'd climb up to the top shelf, and it kind of reminds me of that. But it's a little bit more elegant, obviously, than crawling up into a closet. But it has that kind of cozy feel to it, and so I'm really excited about that. It's another opportunity to have another facet of hospitality.
Absolutely. And I love the way a room like that can feel to different types of parties, right? You make that sense of like, the design angle and how it looks and feels when they come in there, but whoever fills that room up, fills it up with a little different energy.
Exactly.
When I looked in there the other night when I was at your restaurant, so good. I looked in there and I sense it, it really fits. I love that it's not exactly connected to Myriel too. I love that there's a little space in the barbershop.
The barbershop, yep.
And the chairs are all shiny. They do a nice job keeping that. Anyway, it's kind of cool because it just keeps going a little bit. I love this angle for you.
Thanks.
I think there's few places where you can get, say, was it about 15 people?
Yeah, about 14.
And really private?
Right.
That's a special thing. I just wanted to make sure that I brought it up. And also that I see you pushing, that I see that, you have a small place, so some of the restrictions of that space are volume. And when you don't have volume, there's really nothing to replace it with other than what you're actually selling at a certain price to make sure that it works. So if you have to add a room to add a certain amount of revenue to take the pressure off.
Yep.
And
exactly.
It's cool.
That's restaurant math right there.
Yeah, was that math?
That was math.
Man, I suck at math. I had to take calculus in college and I changed my major because of it.
Oh.
I'm not real smart, but I can talk pretty.
I would disagree with the first part of that, but yeah.
Self-deprecating a bit. So all of this really took me back to, and getting to know your food more really took me back to working at Aquavit.
Oh, yeah.
So I just feel like, Mark, I went on a trip to Stockholm with Marcus, and he was doing this multimedia event in the Opera House, and I went as kind of like, his front of the house dude that was basically wrangling for him and handling everything that he did, but I also worked the floor in Sweden this one night. And then I went to a buddy's place, this really highbrow club outside of Stockholm in rolling fields, and it's just like we ate in a library and had this multi-course meal, right? And it was so old, but everything still felt so precise and modern in a way. And then I walked around that city and I was like, this is why Marcus is so fashionable. This is why I had no idea what the minimalism was about. I didn't really get it until I went to Sweden. I've never been to Japan, but also just seeing like the simplicity in the way they think about food, and the, you know, the pickling, preserving, smoking, those things that are just essential for, you know, climates like ours.
It is, yeah. Yeah, it's not just a cool thing, you know, it's not essential. Just a cute technique, you know, but it really is, it is essential for climates like ours. And leaning into that is kind of, you know, instead of bucking against limitations, you know, like the limitation being a 4-season climate, leaning into that, embracing it, and exploring all the good things that it has, I think that's the best way to go, personally.
Yeah, you're digging deeper. You're digging deeper, or maybe even literally, and you know, because of what you do and how you do it. It's really a cool thing. Marcus taught me a lot, excuse me, about order as well. The Swedes have a certain efficiency and order with which things are handled, a directness, kind of, it's not without ego when you're the boss, but when you're being told what to do, there's a regimentation in most of the way those kitchens, again, this was a long time ago for me, but certainly there was a lot more regimentation, and just the way the Swedes are in general, it was kind of all tight ship.
Yep.
Pennies, you know, like everything was pennies, you know, you just, do you feel like you have some of that in you?
Yes and no. It's funny, when I was at Faviken, Magnus Nilsson's restaurant, I was expecting to feel, I've never really felt like I was terribly American in, like, culturally American.
Yeah.
I always feel like I fit in better in other parts of the world, you know, but when I was in that kitchen, I thought, wow, I've never felt like a rogue before, but I kind of did in comparison.
You were outlandish.
I felt offended, you know, that I didn't know some things ahead of time. So I felt, and when I realized no one was being mean by not communicating something, I just, you know, I felt like I had to protect, I felt, you know, more concerned about my personal rights than most people around me were. And I don't mean that anyone did anything egregious. I just mean, like, for example, I was staying in a cabin and not knowing ahead of time that I was getting a new roommate that day, or, you know, hadn't put away my laundry, or, you know, just things like that I realized, oh, I'm not thinking about the good of everybody right now. I'm just kind of liking my privacy. And, you know, so in that sense, I've felt really American in contrast.
Exposed almost.
A little bit exposed, yeah. And so it actually kind of made me more, realizing that early on kind of made me look for those differences even more. And over that time, I really came to respect and appreciate many parts of that more regimented, you know, for the good of the big picture mentality. And I really left feeling inspired by that in many ways, and wanting to bring back elements of that with me. You know, in the Midwest, it's challenging. You know, we've had strong subcultures in a lot of our restaurants for a long time, and you don't just leave that overnight. You know, there's been a lot of progress made in terms of creating, you know, people are talking about more ethical workplaces, places that, you know, don't encourage people yelling at each other or breaking each other or whatever. And, but, you know, there still is I think many people just haven't experienced context with that sense of decorum, that level of organization. And, you know, it's interesting because for me, I love order. I love organizing things, but I'm a creative. And so it's hard for me alone. And I realized this, you know, even at, when I was at Corner Table a little bit and at Myriel, you can't just create structures and organization and that sense of regiment on your own, and it has to fit the context. So over time, it's been really cool bumping into other people who sort of resonate with that as an idea. And a lot of them, you know, are working, are on the team right now at Myriel, and it's really exciting for me, but it's been a process. So that's a long and really abstract answer to your question, but
I love it.
You know, I'd say right now, the way that we operate at the restaurant is a lot closer to that with modifications, of course, than, it felt possible to achieve 4 years ago. And, a lot of it has to do with the concept, though, as well. We still have an a la carte menu. There are a lot of variables that happen all the time. We can't be as buttoned up about everything. We have changes midday sometimes that we don't anticipate, and everyone has to just kind of roll with it. And we have a small space. We can't have everything as tucked and tidy as we want always. But the thing is, every single day we're working towards that. And we have checkpoints, we have meetings, we have checklists, and we bring as much order to that very organic process as we can.
Sure. I mean, your mise, like you say, your mise is like, you have to have this ready to go. You have to have this ready to go. And you're dealing in smaller, say, batches of produce or whatever, and working through them. And holy cow, they bought the ham and beans out, I had the ham and beans.
Ooh.
Love the ham and beans. Tarragon in the vinaigrette?
In the, the like a salad. Yes, tarragon and sunflower seed.
Yeah. Oh, so good. There were like 8 things I wanted to talk about in what we just went through.
Yeah.
Favakin is an experience. How that molded you. You get to bring that home. And that you think you got more out of that than you would have, say, stagiaring somewhere here in the States?
I do. I mean, I just think it's so valuable, any opportunity you can to be in a significantly different culture. I mean, there are amazing places that people could stage here in the States. But for me personally, I think I'm most challenged when that's another layer of different, and it's also it's just inspiring. I love being somewhere where I feel like a little bit more of an outsider. And, the climate, there are a lot of similarities there, but there's just more that you can learn in some ways if you're in a very different culture.
Yeah. Just the perspective of being where it's not your home, where, removing some of the comfort factors.
Yep, exactly. And needing to defer to that too,
And like work through it too. There's a lot to learn. There's so many learning curves, you're in the kitchen and learning something. There's other languages going on. And you're trying to get a sense of everything.
Right.
You do a lot of foraging there?
In Sweden? I did a bit. I was there in the winter, so it wasn't, but actually, yes, getting branches, getting juniper, pine needles, things like that. That was still a part of it. And then I got to work with things that other people had gathered in other seasons, like clumps of moss and whatnot, and saw how those things were stored. And
Was that used in plating, or were people eating the moss?
It was used in plating.
I don't know, man. I've never really heard of eating moss, but I've seen some plates with some moss
if I was desperate enough, I definitely would dig into some moss.
Juicy, spongy greens.
Yep.
All right. So you gathered a lot there, right? And I've talked about my experiences is kind of like hunting and gathering. And then I decided to do my own joint, right? And then when you do that, you're jumping off, no matter if you know how to swim, when you jump off that pier, the water is rough. And I mean, you were a pastry chef and a really, really good one, right?
Thanks.
Do you think you are still a really good pastry chef?
Yeah. I mean, I
do what you want.
I can throw down, I think.
I love that. I think so too. I just wanted to check in there because, I can have pie all day long and it's the best pie. But, like the hidden talents that maybe aren't necessarily on show at Myriel that you have, or maybe not hidden so much as like, it's not the place for them at the moment or whatever. Yeah. It's cool. It's like tools in your toolbox for sure. So you're highly regarded pastry chef. You leave Favakin. What year was that? That was...
I don't remember. That was 2018 maybe.
Yeah, right before things kind of happened here, COVID, all of that.
And then I landed at Corner Table right after that.
And I followed you there. We did an event out here we're in St. Paul, Minnesota, by the way, but we did an event out here, a winter event, and I just you were with Corner Table at the time.
Yes.
but it was fucking cold out.
It was freezing.
It was fucking cold out. But you had like the tied up kerchief. I don't know what you would say. You had like these. I remember it because you just look so much more fashionable than anybody else. Like, and like the cold didn't bother you.
Oh, well, it secretly did, but I put on a good show.
I think. I don't know, that just, you know, I knew where you were coming from or what your recent experiences have been. And I saw you. I went over there and ate at the counter, a corner table, and it was delicious. And it's interesting, you know, to work for somebody else after having had these other experiences. And I know Thomas has got a certain level that I know you appreciate. And then how long was it before you were concepting or finding Myriel so you could go out and make that expression?
Yeah, well, it kind of, I mean, so about a year in, right, you know, when I started at Corner Table, I did Cochon, the competition, the heritage. Thanks. Yeah, it was quite the exciting adventure that I would never have thought of if it hadn't been for Thomas Bamer saying, I have this thing, what do you think about it? And I was like, oh, I'll think about it. And he's like, no, you're doing it.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, all right. So that was my invitation to Cochon. And I just thought, man, I don't feel like, it just seems a little more of a macho vibe than I've really got going for me. But we changed that. And my team really embraced kind of doing things a different way, ended up winning. But after the whole thing, yeah.
Not even just here, but the whole thing.
And after that, you know, I started to have conversations with Nick and Thomas about, you know, they threw out the idea of me coming into partnership and rebranding Corner Table, since it had a long run at that point. And so it was when I was thinking about that, that the idea of Myriel started crystallizing. And, you know, various things happened right before COVID. It just, that didn't come to fruition the way that I anticipated. But what it did was I was already starting to think in terms of ownership. And I was really committed and excited. I committed to this idea of Myriel. And between Corner Table closing, my grandmother, the one who taught me how to make pie, she died. And then I did a little pop-up at Travail, and COVID started. And that was a lot of really big things all in one chunk of time that really kind of, with that in the back of my mind, it made me ask a lot of questions about what I wanted to do with this momentum and with the opportunity that I knew I had.
God. So you come out of all that hard stuff and do something hard as well.
Yeah, why not? It's what we do.
It is. It is what we do. I do struggle, again, like with some of the missing that I know that I'm going to have here at Dinette. It's kind of like people ask you and they expect what you're going to do next.
Yeah.
They already expect it.
Yeah.
Hey, what are you going to do next? What do you got on board? And I'm like, nothing. And it's kind of intentional for me at this point in my career. I kind of just want to see what it's like to have one restaurant again for a minute before I start filling space. I just haven't had that space. So, but I still want to look at spaces. I still want to like concept. I have this little note that was connected to my notes for the show that I haven't looked at yet, but it's about this little, I have some names for this little space that these guys were telling me about. And I was just like, oh man, we could call it this. So it never really dies inside you so much as it is it the right time? Do things fit?
Exactly.
Is it, you know, is the momentum right?
Yeah.
You know, but I'm so glad you fucking did it.
Thanks.
Choosing something in St. Paul, how, versus Minneapolis.
Yeah.
How, was that a difficult decision, or was it like you saw the space and?
It was kind of, I mean, it was difficult in that it wasn't what I had initially had my heart set on. You know, I really wanted to be kind of in the same neighborhood as Corner Table. I was really familiar with South Minneapolis. There was kind of a following there. I knew that area. And, you know, so I was really, and it got really close to having a space there, a couple of them actually. But there were just too many, you know, when you're trying, you have this idea of what you want, and you're trying so hard to make the thing happen, but you just know it's not quite right. And there are too many challenges. Like sometimes there's good challenge that you have to push through, but then sometimes it's just too many things where you're like, okay, I got to just read this right, be honest. This isn't the right fit. And it was kind of one of those things for me. And eventually my business partner, who was a commercial realtor, he knew about this spot that might be opening up, Bar Brigade. And when I looked there, I just thought, it just seemed the scope was right. It was the right size. I liked that it was in a neighborhood. It had more to do about context. Like it could have been in any city almost, but, and I liked, the first restaurant that I worked in was Meritage in St. Paul. And so I have had fond associations with St. Paul already. And in hindsight, I'm really glad that I went with that. I think St. Paul's a great city. I think it's a cool, there's a lot of appreciation for art and quality in St. Paul. It's a little bit of it's less of a bright, shiny object kind of mentality. There's a little faster pace. We're trying to new things in Minneapolis. Yeah. St. Paul is more of like a wait and prove yourself kind of place. Yeah. And it's more like a small town in that way.
Yeah. I talk about, and maybe this is because I'm in St. Paul and maybe everybody thinks this, but I talk about how we build trust here.
Yes. Yeah. And
you're really, I think
it's the long game.
It's the long game. And you're building trust, by sincerity.
Yes.
In whatever form, within your own concept. But if people know that ultimately that you're going to handle it for them and they trust you, in St. Paul, they'll be back.
Yeah.
They'll look in the eye and they'll be back.
Yeah.
All right, I'll be back. And I'll often ask, if something gets screwed up, I'm like, are you coming back or not? Every once in a while, or not a lot, it doesn't have to happen a lot, but, I kind of want to ask him, you coming back or not? Have I done enough? And I think there's something in St. Paul where you can ask that and feel okay, because people do want to be taken care of.
Right.
Still, and while it has a different, say, aesthetic than Minneapolis, it's not any less educated or traveled or whatever than Minneapolis.
No.
It's just less, say, showy.
Yeah.
It is a great city. And it's had its challenges, and business in the cities are a little bit harder than, say, in the suburbs, a little more expensive. We deal with that. At the same time, where do you want to be? How does your building feel? Like you said, the neighborhood, it feels like a neighborhood, because it is. People have been here for a long time.
Yeah.
When I looked at Moochie's, I saw what nobody else could see. You can't look at a building like that and be like, oh my God, it's fucking beautiful.
No,
it's literally a brick rectangle.
You made beauty from what you put in there.
Yes.
You created it.
I saw that it could be pretty and work for me. And so it's absolutely operating on a feel when you go into places, strip club or a steakhouse, man, you walk into that place and it just fucking felt away. It was so much easier for me to add on top of what that building already gave me in spirit and style and darkness and, so I'm with you. If it doesn't feel right, it isn't.
Right.
If you have a real question about it, isn't. And I've taken chances on places.
Yeah.
That shouldn't have worked.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that's the beauty and that's the drive. So it's in me. I see it in you. You're just kind of getting rolling. Things are just starting to fucking go for you. Right?
I think so.
Yeah, you've been doing it for a while though, right? I mean, it takes a bit to really get wound up in this.
Yeah, it does.
And to find that momentum and that inertia to, earning, the recognition from Food and Wine this and 3 Beard nominations, right? 3?
Yeah.
3, there's so much for you that I just see coming. It was one of the reasons I was the timing of this was perfect because, I've been wanting, anyway, I'm just really happy to have you here and I'm excited for the drive that you have. I feel inspired by those people, you and some of the others that I have mentioned that are pushing on. I love Gus Gus too. what a great little neighborhood
Yeah.
spot, you know, complimentary. It does show that, say, smaller places at this time in our industry,
Yeah.
you can fill them just a little easier if you're careful with labor and all that. You can make it go. They're busy, man.
They crush. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just so happy and proud of them.
We've got a great, I mean, like, you know, we've got Hyacinth, there's
yes.
Estelle,
Yes.
and even, and now it's been open for longer, but Lucia and Cora,
Yes.
Kitty Corner, like
Yes.
they're just these gems that have a huge following in the neighborhood.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, that's really, I think that's exciting.
It's beautiful. So, you know, the level is here and people are trying and it's still new places. And I, you know, it's really good to see that inertia. And you specifically finding, you know, a bigger platform, you know, for yourself and that scope and the opportunities that come with that. And, you know, kind of feeling and sensing your energy and your strength and your kind of can-do attitude is really cool. And I'm really just fucking excited for you.
Thanks.
I really love that you said that you feel like you fit more not here in the States. You know, we happen to actually be 400 miles east of the center of North America.
Wow.
Yeah. And so you are dead in the middle of being American.
I know.
You are like dead, like squarely in the middle.
I know. Yeah.
But I feel this on you, you know, like I say, your sense of style, the things that I notice that are different about you. You say you're creative, and how do you feel your brain when it's not food? Like what fuels you? Are you a reader, or is it visual stuff, or do you have to paint, or?
Yeah, all of the above. I mean, and it really just kind of, it can, whatever I need to do can shift from time to time, depending on, you know, what kind of bandwidth I have, what I have access to, you know, but I just went to Copenhagen and that was amazing, you know, physically being in a place, different smells and sounds and sights and languages and everything, that really gets my wheels turning.
Yes.
Just seeing different cultural values and, you know, that excites me, and oftentimes it pops out an idea not even related to what I'm seeing, but over here. And I just need, it like gives me brain space kind of. But you know, can't always be trotting over to Copenhagen or places like that. But you know, I do love painting. Sometimes I find ways to weasel things like that into my job as a business owner, you know, so I'll try to keep it fun. Like some of those things, you know, I do the graphic design and painting for the restaurant, and you know, but I can kind of zone out while I'm doing that, and that's good for my brain. Going on little runs if I don't have much time, at least being outside and seeing beauty, that gets me going. You know, I love watching classic film and reading books, and you know, I can't do all those things in 1 week, you know, but I'll pick, and that's kind of my mix of stuff, and having good conversations with people, like just intellectually challenging, stimulating conversation, that really gets me going too. So any number of those things really I have to do to kind of feel alive. Yeah, and productive.
Yeah, and you know, present with yourself, you know, so that you can be present with others.
Yeah.
Because you know, like so much of, I mean, you're like running food from the kitchen and spending time at tables and. You know, so you have, which I love. Again, the front of the house presence there is really impactful to me. So not like you can kind of like squirrel into that kitchen very much either, but it's really nice that you actually take it one step further and walk out. Anyway, you know, somebody said, your quote was unpretentious excellence.
Yeah.
You kind of live by that, or is that a one-time thing?
No, I mean, that really drives a lot of what we do at Myriel, you know, and I think everybody on staff has a really deep sense of ownership of that as a concept, or else they probably wouldn't be happy at Myriel. You know, the excellence part manifests in, you know, every staff meeting we have, every pre-shift, every debrief, you know, everyone has to just kind of be buttoned up, ready to go. We turn the lights down before service in the kitchen, it's like getting ready for the theater. And not like we're putting on a show like it's fake, but we're getting ready for the most important thing. And everyone has a sense of kind of respect and reverence for that, I think. Every day we're trying to do things better, tighter, but yet at the same time, we're not doing it in a way where it's about, just like our cooking, it's not about the technique. We're not thinking, and I've, no shame on chefs who excel at, using, some people just are wired to think in terms of technique. How can we do this different? How can we do that?
Yeah.
And, we certainly think and talk that way at Myriel, but it's to serve the experience. It is to highlight the ingredient. It's secondary. And it's not technique first and foremost. It's not service structure first and foremost. It's there to serve our guests. It's there to respect the work of the farmers and the ingredients that they're growing. And so it's just, it's a subtle, but I think important shift that we make. And we never, ever want anybody to feel stupid or like they don't know enough or that they can't just, it should feel, like when I think of the times that I walked into my grandma's house and I saw her table set nicely. And it wasn't super fancy, but I knew that was her nice set of dishes. I knew that she took time to put those peonies in just the right vase that maybe didn't match. But I knew that was special, and it made me feel special. And that's how we want all of our care and intentionality, whether it's through the way that we cook or the way that we set our tables and greet our guests, to make people feel. It's not to impress or to be about us. It's about their experience.
Yeah.
That was a really long answer again.
No, I love it. I love all of this, and I think it's really important. Do you want some more coffee?
I should probably switch to water and be responsible for it.
I just want to make sure.
But thank you.
You're sitting comfortable.
I'll send my distress signal if I need some.
So you thinking about that very long answer you just gave me, and I loved it. What I was feeling and sensing behind that answer was, sure. When you get there, there is a sense of order. There is a sense of efficiency. There's an element of constant change and urgency and professionalism. And then you're always trying to tighten that up and make it, even better. But ultimately, the individuals that you've hired have what it takes inside them to understand both the organizational side and then the emotional side of our business, which is just like exuding care.
Yeah.
And so those, like, you've hired very well, and the people you do have to have people that get on board with it. There has to be some sort of thing that people are buying into. But your people seem to have, it's a very inclusive place. Your people just seem to have, all of them, like such a pride in it, but they're so easy and welcoming, and it is a neighborhood place, but it's certainly elevated, but not, I would never want somebody to not go there, because it's still casual enough. The bar menu with the little snacks and all, you make it so accessible, and everything has a certain level. And then the people deliver with where their kindness is. It feels right and it fits. I used to call, when we opened this place, you're welcome. I said, Dinette is upscale flannel. That's kind of what I wanted it to be. A place that had a sense that it was finer, but also casual enough. Like, everybody's going to wear their fleece in here. No, you can't. I don't want to stop anybody from doing that. Be casual and come in here and eat something that you maybe, is a little different or fun or like overboard, but also like it's pretty, I'm looking at my notes here. What's coming out of the ground right now?
Meaning literally what's growing?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm like, is this a metaphor? I don't know.
No, in fact, it's not.
Okay. Well, it's been a really interesting year. The seasons it's been a really funny growing season in a lot of ways, and even foraging season. Everything happened a little bit earlier. And it's been so dry lately. But like right now, literally a couple days ago, I was with a couple people and we dug up beets. They had dug up potatoes earlier that day. I'm going to get my first round of Haralson apples this week. I'm super excited about that. Those aren't, I mean, the tree's in the ground. The apples are, coming out of the tree. If we're being technical here, but
I just want to know what you're looking at right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And squash, I saw you had some.
Yep, I just got some. Oh yeah, I got some delicata squash.
Yeah, that looks beautiful.
One of my dear farmer friends, he's I think turning 88 in a couple of weeks. He's still growing squash for us, and
Crazy.
And that was really special to be able to harvest that. And so then we'll start getting some of the butternut wasn't quite ready yet. It's not all squash is ready at the same time, and so
Good.
It was interesting to kind of check.
You gotta have things to look forward to as it
Exactly.
gets real cold too.
Yep. So I know, and I really like to hold out as long as possible, working with the summer vegetables, the nightshades, the eggplants and tomatoes, while those are still good, and then they're to keep using those on the menu even when the squash is ready, because the squash can cellar really well.
Yeah.
And we don't want to get squash and root vegetable fatigue too fast here.
Yes.
So
Oh God, it's hard.
yeah.
It's really, really hard to not. And in kind of digging into that a little bit in terms of your seasonality and your menu planning. I mean, I'm imagining it's kind of a like a rolling cart. Like you're kind of like, oh, I have this now and I'm going to roll my cart over here and I have this now. And you guys are just, the hyper seasonality's got to make it difficult for planning.
Yeah, it means a lot of meetings. And, like this past week, we had a little meeting on Saturday, kind of talking about the things we knew would have to change. And then we're going to have another meeting on Tuesday talking about how we're going to change those things. And it's constantly, it's a balance between kind of anticipating what might be ready, what might be available, and having as many conversations with farmers ahead of time as possible, but then also finding out what actually is available. And sometimes that's not the same thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes someone will have 3 5-gallon buckets of grapes picked for us that we weren't planning on at all, or something like that.
Shit
and so we
shows
have
up.
to kind of
they're like, hey, look what we got.
Yeah. And so you kind
I
of,
love it.
I think of it, we think of our menus almost like an outline. We have this outline, we have a format and a structure, and all this ever-growing body of techniques that we can use in the growing season. It means filling in that outline with fresh things that we're getting from people. In the winter, it's pulling all the things that we've preserved and been working on, the rest of the year. And so I feel like it takes a while to get into the rhythm of things, but this year, for the first time, I'm like, okay, this feels more sensible. And it doesn't feel like we're trying to chase a train, which can feel that way when you're hyper seasonal.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you find pricing to be buying like you buy?
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's, a lot of these broadline people, for me, with bags of flour and cans of tomato and imported cheese and just some of the things I use a lot of daily, the broadliner helps me. But, the way that you do this, is it kind of there's no price sheets from some of these farmers, right?
No, there's not.
And it's like, okay, we got 2 pigs this week or something like that, right?
Yeah. So sometimes it means that our costs are really concentrated to certain, because we get only whole animals. So if we're getting, beef, that means we're getting a whole cow or a whole pig for pork, and so our costs are concentrated at certain times. But it also means a lot of talking to our farmers. There are different, we bought a really old dairy cow for the first time. I mean, we bought older dairy cows, but she was 17 years old this year.
My God.
And it was a big question mark for both us and the farmer, what we'd be able to actually use. And we ended up being able to use it really, really well. It was amazing. It surprised us all. But that meant just an honest conversation between us, and we had to be comfortable talking about prices with each other. Does this work for you? Does this work for you?
And you're looking at the animal.
Oh yeah.
And you're looking
Literally
at the animal going,
got
hey,
a
bud,
picture of Lottie looking at the sunset the day before I knew that she was getting butchered.
Oh, no.
You know, and so no, but it's all very real, and you just have to be comfortable, not afraid to talk about prices with people, not afraid to just be honest with them or make sure that they live. But that's why relationships are really important. And, you know, we're valuing the work of our farmers. It's something that we have to factor in. It's just and I think it's just going to keep changing. So we have to be sensitive to their needs and aware of how to be creative on our end. And for us, it means, you know, we're working with a lot of ingredients that aren't specialty ingredients. You know, they're special. They're incredibly special because of how they're being grown, but not what we think of. We're not getting things that are imported. We're not buying caviar, foie gras. We're, you know,
exotics,
working with very earthy things here, and we're making the value added really is largely coming through, you know, the process.
Yep.
So
that's really cool that you get these whole animals. And do you bust down a whole cow? Does it come to the restaurant and you bust it down, or do you have somebody break it down into pieces and then you break it down some more? Or
well, like I love butchery, but I have Isaac Kirkpatrick, who was my initial sous chef at Corner Table when I started there. He is at Myriel, and he is our meat guy. He's our butchery guy. He does a lot of the ferments, and I love it. I would gladly fill in for him if he was gone, but it has just made sense for one person to focus on that. But he and I talk about it. I also have a bad back, and so unfortunately it's making it a little bit like sawing bones isn't probably ideal for me. It's good for my ego to do that, but I know I've still got it. But no, but he and I chat, and our chef de cuisine George will chat about how to use these things. It's so much about strategy, and so we
finding yield, like managing that.
Yeah,
you know, like every animal is different. Yep. You know, we were buying all of our beef from Thousand Hills Cattle Company.
Yeah.
And one week the strips would come in and you'd be like, whoa, these are really crazy looking, I don't know, dark purple, whatever. I mean, there was just such a variance, you know, because they were grass fed. There was a lot leaner and just so much more variance in between these cows. And that meant ultimately that the grass fed steak that you got last week is not going to taste like the grass-fed beef you got this week, and then the seasons change and their feed is different, and then their color is different, and then everything else is different. So this is the winter meat. Yeah. This is you know, like it all changes. That's just a lot of variance for you. So you buy the whole animal, and then as it gets butchered down, you're changing your menu to represent the cut that you're using. Yeah,
they're basically, you know, we're doing 2 different menus too with it. So we have our tasting menu, and we typically use certain cuts for our tasting menu. We typically are using other parts of it, things that we can braise, for example, or turn into a force meat on our a la carte menu. And so it's just a balance of where we're allocating those things. And so it's, you know, we have, as it gets farther into our use of a big animal, for example, it's probably becoming a sausage or a stew or something like that, you know, and it's, it can last for quite a long time if you're careful.
Yeah, if you're doing it right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what you have to do. Like, when you're doing what you do is like parse it out and make sure that you're managing it. When you're looking at menu development, is it call the farmers, seeing what's coming in next week, design a plate around the produce that's coming in next week, and have that dish concepted for when it arrives?
Yes, as much as possible, we like to do that. If we get surprises, or if I forage something that, you know, we weren't expecting or whatever, oftentimes we'll do something on the tasting menu. That's kind of an easier fast change for us. The a la carte menu, we try to, you know, we're really, you know, when we first started, we would create and put up a dish on the same day. But it was just more stressful for everybody than it probably needed to be. So we've really gotten into more of a rhythm of testing our dishes ahead of time, talking about it. We already have an idea. It's conceptualized, and then we put it together, make any adjustments, and then the next day is whenever it makes sense, when we're out of the things for the previous dish or something like that, we'll change it.
Yeah. We, like in our pasta environment, we make a dish we think we like. We like it. And then we run it as a special for a weekend to see what the response is and kind of how consistently and what the pickup looks like. And if we feel good, then we'll add it to the menu, because, you don't really want surprises. Like, and you can taste everything and then all of a sudden it gets working and you're like, I don't love this anymore. I did love it. I don't love it anymore. And, so it's an interesting thing to be able to do. Tasting menus. I mean, what a great outlet. Thank God you have that, probably, right? Because it would be hard to buy a whole animal and have your menu, your a la carte menu, kind of reliant on that. Yeah. I came in a month and a half ago, another beautiful night there, and we had it was a chilled tomato water. I had cucumbers in buttermilk. Yeah. I had, I don't know. It was just so many, it's just so great and natural. Your approach to seasoning is, I love fucking salt, okay? And it's a problem sometimes. But I know when I come to Myriel, that it's going to be seasoned right, but I should not be expecting flavors that are covered with seasoning. You are bearing out the real fruit of the product. Yeah. So from a seasoning standpoint, what do you talk about when you're plating?
I mean, we talk about making, especially with vegetables, or we want the ingredient to shine. That's a very, very intentional thing. And sometimes, when we're experimenting with a dish and there are just too many things going on there, in my mind, too many things going on, we just have to, we have a conversation about what is this function on the dish? How is this supporting this other piece? Like for proteins, for example, it's not, we like to not think of them as an entree, but as a protein with a garnish that really enhances it well. And it's not like a meal replacement. It's just, this is the special piece of meat that we have. This is how you're going to enjoy the best. And then,
in this case, seared duck breast with crab apple.
Yes. Yeah.
The crab apples were great. It's tart enough. You balanced all those flavors out. Little sweetness, It's fucking good.
But that's a perfect example. It's just, someone would look at that and be like, oh, that's a duck breast on a plate with some sauce. But for us, that's what it needs. And anything more would be kind of distracting from that beautiful duck breast.
You get to taste more. There was a knock that Awamni took, the seasoning aspect. And it's like, wait a minute, folks, use your tongue to taste. Really think about it, I do. And when I come to your place, I'm so glad that it's just, there's an even seasoning. And I know that I'm going to taste something else that isn't like what I know salt will be.
Right. Well, and I think it's important to have, not every dish has to have every single sensation of flavor, and especially if we're wanting people to try a bunch of different things. And in a tasting menu, you certainly have to think that way. You don't want palate fatigue. But, I think it's okay if something is just really green tasting with a hint of vinegary tartness, but it doesn't have crunch. It doesn't have, a huge, a savory umami thing going on. It's okay to have a couple dimensions and not all of them sometimes. And of course,
if you can pull it off.
If you can, and you don't want
it bears flavor down to its most pure moment, really.
And for some people that is boring. But I think that
Who are they?
Well,
Where are those?
the ones who have written a few things on Google reviews, but no, which I don't really read.
God, don't.
Yeah.
Don't.
I've heard of a few along the ways, and that's okay. That's okay. But it's just it's not going to change how we're doing things.
No, because if you cooked like they wanted you to, it wouldn't be Myriel.
Yeah.
That's why you come to Myriel to get something you haven't had before.
Yeah.
In a different way. And that's what you have to do really, is open up your mind to how you're presenting these things. Mm-hmm. For me, it's not like you say, it's not like some ethereal experience. It's more like tasting. It's just like, it's some people, I don't know if it's you, call what you do grandma chic.
Oh yeah. That was in the Food and Wine article by Raphael Brion.
Okay.
Uh-huh. And I think I had mentioned something, or I said Grandma Nouveau or something in a conversation with him.
Maybe I like that better. Because while there's elements of the farm and the things that you make, and it's just like purity, there's also like that level of elevation that you're able to get out of your people and the way that you present it. Mm-hmm. You're just doing so good.
Thanks.
I'm gonna look at my notes here quick. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you okay? Take your
yes.
time. Okay, yes, please take your time. You're 10:30, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh, good.
Yep.
We're in great we're in great shape, Karyn. You're amazing. Do you know what humanskost is?
No.
Swedish. It's that's a name of Swedish comfort food.
Oh yeah. Yes. Amazing.
Just something else that it just popped into my brain when I was thinking, of Swedish comfort food is also still kind of unique. The way that they do meatballs and gravy. You used to do meatballs and gravy too.
We might do that around Christmas or something this year.
Yeah,
but
it's just you can elevate anything. It's potatoes, meat and potatoes in the most ground, simple form, but like you can still make it dope. And Marcus made when it was on the menu at Aquavit the entire time. I think you have to have those elements, but it's nice to be able to like build on top of it.
Yeah.
Real quick, what were you like as a kid?
So I grew up an only child, played in the woods a lot behind my house. That was probably my first. I never wanted to be a chef, but I would pretend like I was cooking and living out some great adventure. I'd just be like lost in my imagination all day. Was always really interested in art and music. I loved learning. Just curious about a lot of things, I think, and always have had a sense of adventure. My dad was working on his PhD when I was about 5, and my mom and I went with him to Sweden and Norway for a couple months. And to me, that just kind of opened up the world. The world was a big place to me from then on. And cool. And they had people from other countries visiting and staying with us in our home a lot. And so I saw, the importance of different people connecting over the table. And, so I don't know, I always kind of marched to the beat of my own drum. When I was a kid, I had neighbors who called me a weirdo, and I really didn't understand why they thought I was weird. But now I'm like, oh man, I really was weird. I was just interested in things and other kids weren't, but I learned to be kind of okay with that when I was, at an early age.
Good. Do you think you're an introvert? Or are you?
I don't know. I think I certainly need time alone to recharge right now in some ways, but I need a balance, and I certainly can turn it on. Or when I'm around people, I love being around people.
Absolutely, you
so
sure can.
I think that I couldn't even answer really. I don't know.
I'm more of an introvert than people might suspect.
Yeah,
and it's not really that I'm not social, because I'm terribly social.
Yeah,
but alone, like quiet sometimes.
Yes,
just like needing no cacophony of the outside world and the phone ringing and all that stuff. And it's been forever, so you kind of like, it doesn't push me inside. This is my extrovert scenario. I guess the reason I ask is because now, you know, really with where things you're going to be asked to do with your career are going to be different. And you did Karyn's Quarantine Kitchen, and that was kind of when you became like visible to me, like as a personality. I was like, oh, you know, she's got balls. Maybe that's not the way to say it. She's got what it takes to do this, you know? And I'm like, oh, and she's got the fucking skill. And that's when I kind of like, that's when I was like, oh, I didn't know. And then all of a sudden you are here and this personality comes out. And I was like, okay. So you really have felt kind of comfortable with the social side of you, you know, kind of ballsy getting into Favakin, right? Didn't you? You know, you took them a little gift and showed them some of your love, the way that
I brought a pie.
Yeah, the way your grandma shows you love.
I wasn't even trying to like get into Stash at that point, but I might have opened the door that in a way that I didn't realize.
I'm really glad to learn this about you, and I think that traveling spirit, that adventuresome spirit, is way more palpable to me. I can feel it on you now, and it's like it's just nice to see that about you, because it certainly will add to your drive, and it certainly you'll have things that are asked of you now that haven't been before, and you'll have to kind of question what you really want to do and question what you don't really want to do, and there'll be a little more polling. And you're comfortable with your staff, and everybody's there holding it down for you when you get to go on your trips. So that's beautiful.
It's really an amazing team. Yeah, and I guess that, you know, I think I mentioned this to you the other day, but I really feel a sense of stewardship with that bigger platform that is here right now, and with the momentum and all of that. And I just really, it's cool because it's also coming at a time where I feel like it is becoming a little bit clearer to myself what it is that I'm about, that's specific kind of to me, and it lines up with what we're doing at Myriel too.
So you know why you're great now?
Well, I don't know about that.
Why? Well,
but I mean, I know why. I just think I do have a unique voice in this scene, and I think I'm feeling more comfortable articulating that now.
Yeah. You're great. And I think it's hard to recognize, you know, like when you're looking at yourself and what you're doing with your career, you know, to give yourself enough credit for what you've already achieved, and also, you know, what makes you great today, what makes you great tomorrow. And I think you know what makes you great, and you're following that path. You're sensing yourself, you're moving into a new zone of, say, familiarity with bigger audiences, and you've been pressing that all the way along. So it's really nice to see that you're doing that, and I think that's a lot of what makes you great. If you're not giving yourself credit for that, just the work that you've done and the pressure you put on yourself to get everything straightened away the way you do. It's really fucking cool. And you deserve all of this.
Thank you.
So just make sure that you're giving yourself some credit for being as good as you are. And, you know, also, I don't mean to blow you up, but I have one last note here where, like, you know, just being able to be who you are, expressing yourself in Myriel and not changing that, like, that is a daily expression of you and your team. And, you know, keeping that together is really fucking hard, you know, and maybe in this small city. And so I just appreciate what you've done there. I was warned when I opened a small restaurant by Håkan Swan, the owner of Aquavit.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't when I opened a small restaurant. It was when he was trying to mentor me on my career. And he's like, Tim, if you open a small restaurant, you're going to die working in it. Like, fuck you, Håkan, man. All I want to do is be in small restaurants. All I want to do is, you know, like, I can envision myself, you know, playing checkers outside of my restaurant, a little beret on. Maybe I'll start smoking cigars.
I can see that too.
You know, a little, well, you know, to be whatever it is, a little grappa, just sipping it out. Hey, come on in, you know. And I think now I'm okay understanding that if I open something small, it's that toil and that trial and that risk that I enjoy. So for you, I see you in this small place. I see you adding on. I see your personality growing, and I hope that this provides you with what you deserve.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's really cool.
And I think that's something that, I think about every day right now is just what does that continue to look like? And there's something really special about being a part of having your ideas live in four walls with a bunch of people who share those and add to them. And that's something, and I look at people where, if you remove yourself a ton from that, which might be necessary for different reasons at, different times, you lose a little bit of that. And, but how do you, in a sense, let that thrive and also continue to grow those ideas outside of those four walls? That's the magic question. And I'm trying to figure that out now.
It's a lot of lives.
But it is. Yeah.
It's a lot of lives.
Yep.
So, I don't know if I've done that. I've done numerous things in terms of restaurants and having multiple for the last 10 years. I'm not sure that I have good advice for you. We're very different people, but we also kind of understand what needs to happen when these things get done. And you have to be able to just have the people supporting you that you want around you so that you can go do what you need to do to support what your dream is. And not only yours, but the people that work for you.
Exactly. I think
and to keep that going,
Yeah.
There's 40 people that work for me right now, and some of them are going to lose their jobs in a while, and we're already talking about where they're going to go and what their dreams are and what their aspirations are. And it's beautiful finding that.
Yeah.
But
that's
also,
huge. That's hard too.
Yeah, it's a big, long goodbye.
Yeah.
But when you really care and you care about the people you work with, the ones that are the essence of your business, that are the fingers on your hands, the ones that are actually touching the plates and clearing the plates and looking people in the eyes, that's the good stuff. I really want to thank you for being with me on Neverland. Again, I need to blow you up more, but I'm just appreciative. You're in St. Paul and Minnesota, and I see what you're doing, and I like it. And it's been a pleasure having you here today.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's been really great to chat.
Anytime, Karyn. Thanks for coming.